It's the history of the Arab world, it's the history of the region, but expressed in artwork. In the global history of new media art, you don't really find much of Arab names. Historically speaking, it's almost zero.
Is the story of the Arab world slightly different because you've only chosen this very broad category of art?
Lucien Samaha is a Lebanese-American artist. The first digital image, it's by him.
He's the first person to ever click the first digital image.
Wow!
This is the birth moment of digital images, and so it's the very first image of a cat. I find that very amusing.
What do you think this exhibition is about?
When the artists arrived, they were like exchanging. Some of them knew each other but never met each other. But if Riyadh becomes this cultural hub, like the way Cairo was or the way Baghdad was at a certain point, and that was a dimension that we haven't thought about.
How's everybody doing? Before we get started, you doing okay? My name is Maknana. This is a very special episode of the Afikra podcast. We're here in Riyadh at Diriyah Art Futures. This is the third episode in this sort of arc that we're doing that is exploring the work of DAF. And this episode is with Ala Younis and Haytham Nawar. And we're looking into the most recent exhibition. First of all, welcome. Or I should say welcome to myself. This is
exactly.
Thanks for having me. That's what I should say.
Welcome.
Yeah. I want to just start, maybe Haytham, we'll start with you. Like big picture, if you were to try to explain the exhibition to somebody, you know, like an old college friend who's telling you, like, what are you doing in Riyadh? How would you describe it?
I think if I really, in a brief way or a longer, you're not longer answer, no.
Let's start with the brief one, then we'll go
the brief one. It's an exhibition about an investigation of the new media art practices from a historical until contemporary practice of in the field of new media art.
Yeah. I want to go directly to the subtitle. Tell me why the word archaeology is in the subtitle of Maknana.
Because in the global history of new media art, you don't really find much of Arab names. So historically speaking, it's almost zero. So there is a lot of research. The exhibition is a research-based exhibition. So a lot of research being done between Ala and myself to find the unknown history of media art in the Arab world. So we felt it's more of an archaeological job to do, to look at, dig and find names nobody knows and to rewrite the history again.
Yeah. Ala, can you give me an example? You're an artist, you're a researcher, you do many different things. Do you have an example of one of those names that sort of resurfaced that you didn't know, that you're like, this is a find, this is expanding my own understanding of art in the Arab world?
Okay, so together we are artists who also emerged in the time when there was some sort of a shift from traditional practices into new media practices, installation, research-led practices. So part of the work we've done in this exhibition is basically going back to how we have grown up with these histories, and then who else was there in the scene when we were active, and how much we knew about others. So it was very important for us to also feel this like generational also aspect in the exhibition, where perhaps the word archaeology kind of helps because you find out certain angles about the history, but then you keep finding out more new links. And I want to say, like, you don't see it in the show, but it is in the research in the show. For instance, the early video experiments, of artists like an artist like Walid Rad coming back to the region. He had to leave Lebanon when he was 16 years old. He moved to the US, studied there. And then he comes back with Jay Saloom just right after or around the end of the Lebanese war, with handy cams and editing suites where they start filming and editing and talking together. And then, for instance, his returns later They established more links with the region with artists like Akram Zatari and so on. So it was very fascinating, for instance, to figure out these types of relationships, and also, for instance, to see the work that Jay Saloom has done with Ilyas Leyman, also on the image of Arabs in the media, in Western media, and to trace and link that type of work also to, for instance, Walid Rad's PhD, which was also related to similar topics, and understand where is Dort Said in all of this. So this type of research was also like very eye-opening to think about what was happening at the turn of the 90s, beyond just a series of video art workshops that we thought that the history starts there, kind of like contemporary practices kind of have that turning point. That's like one aspect.
Yeah. It's interesting because I had the luxury of taking a tour with a bunch of the volunteer guides. And I was asking them to like, what do you think this exhibition is about? And they were talking about art, but in some ways they're also talking about like, okay, this kind of retelling the history of the region. And it's trying to retell the history of the region in a way that was surprising to them. Was that, Haytham, was that a part of the sort of the brief min al-awwal? And no, we want to try to tell the story.
To be frank, it wasn't really briefed that way. It was the brief normally comes about the exhibition. We shared about the curatorial statement. We shared about the artworks themselves, the artists. But I think part of the brief is actually talking about the importance of history, and to document and then archive and then exhibit and share the history, that untold history. And so I guess the great guys, because I see them really great guys, they did figure it out that really it is very important to be part of this exhibition, because it's again telling a new history, adding knowledge to the global knowledge about new media art.
I want to talk about the 4 themes, the sort of like clusters of themes. Ala, can you just introduce them, the people who haven't been able to see them? What are the 4 sort of clusters?
Automation, autonomy, ripples, and glitch. So when we were researching the artists overall, I mean, when I was first approached by Haytham to curate this show, co-curate this exhibition, I was thinking, oh, look, it's so easy, we can make it. It's just like I write this list of names and send them over, because yes, there hasn't been that type of exhibition, so it felt that it's needed. But then I felt that I knew enough. But then as we looked for artists who have utilized or have like, that you could see like new media art practice or tendency in their work, we started to try to analyze what is it that, why the media is there, new media is there, or the technology is there. I want to say that there's a long text, in fact, by Samia Halabi, in which she says in one part that she was thinking about like very cliche ideas, like, Leonardo da Vinci working with anatomy, and why she wasn't working, and so if he was working with the media of his time, why she wasn't working with the media of her time. And the media of her time was, for instance, personal computers and coding. And so she buys her own computer and she starts writing software, and that's in between 1986 and 89. And I want to say that she was 50 years old when she was doing that. So it wasn't even that a young artist was trying something out. It was a established artist, or someone like in mid-career, taking a turn. And so like, and trying to understand why someone like Samia Halabi would start, using computers, or later ditching that for something else, or what has stayed in her art from working with, like, for instance, illuminated screens. So, for instance, she starts painting in very vivid colors from that moment onwards. We felt that there is an aspect of autonomy. There's an aspect of seeking independence of the time, not utilizing the media of the time to basically come out of what is basically established at the time. And so it wasn't only like Samia Halabi. We noticed that this notion of autonomy, enabling some sort of ownership or autonomy in the work of the artist or in the voice of the artist, was one very, very interesting aspect. But what is new media in our time is basically utilizing machines, electricity, kinetic works, digital works, and so on. And so what does the machine give you? It gives you the possibility to produce much faster or in a more organized way. So there's like this act of mechanization that is also utilized by the artist, which we felt that sometimes the work is about that, you know, the conversation between the machine and the artist was how the machine allowed an aspect of automation. So these are how we thought about some of the concepts or the themes, and artists can be in different themes at the same time. Mm.
Yeah, but just to build on what Ala said, so at the beginning we really wanted to have like a normal curatorial approach. We're looking for recommendations for artists. You create a balance, especially.
What would that actually look like? What would a quote unquote normal curatorial?
Like she said, we have like you have a theme, you have a concept that you would like to, I always say, to share with the audience, and then you look for names to represent that in terms of names and artworks. So you look at the artworks, you look at the description of the artwork, you see the artwork, you discuss with the artist other possibilities of showing the same artwork or maybe commissioning them for a new artwork. So that's the I call regular approach. But it didn't work that way because again we are looking for new material. So what Ala just described is trying to map this history. So the map was not really geographical map as much as it was actually map of themes and connecting intention, but also connecting the dots, because you find earlier in the history people doing the same things in different countries, but you didn't see the connection between them. But when you look at the artworks, the mediums, the socio-political and even cultural, economical situation in the Arab world, and not just only physically again in the map, but also in diaspora, you will see that there is a lot of the themes that we choose. And that's why we try to draw a new map based on the themes, but not really based on the geography.
Yeah, like usually with an exhibition like this, when you're putting it together, oftentimes you want people to walk out with more questions than they walked in with, right? What are some of the questions that you hope that people walk out with? Like, what are some of the things that you're begging them for? What are the questions that you're begging?
We've asked some questions to the artists themselves, because we thought that okay, the Diriyah Art Futures is an art center, and the exhibition is an art center. It's also an educational institution, and so people are coming here for both to experience but also to learn, right? And so we did not want like artists to send us their typical bios, born in, studied that, this and that, shown here and there. But we wanted them to answer questions that would write their bios in a way that relate to their relationship to technology, and so or to new media art. And so we asked them what were the initial experiences with new media or with technology that would might have inspired their artistic practice. And I would ask a similar question to the visitors. I mean, to be a little bit conscious, maybe for just like a moment or maybe longer, about what is the relationship with new technology or with new media, and where does that relationship or interest takes us to, creatively, conceptually, politically. You know, it's a big question.
Did you guys disagree on anything, like working on this?
That's a good question.
Rare.
That's a good question.
It's rare to disagree. It's rare to not to what? Let me check. It's rare to not disagree. No, it doesn't work.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, we did disagree, but
of
not
course
so much.
we did disagree, but
and it's rare that we don't.
Yeah, it's rarely.
It's rare that you don't disagree.
Not us. In general, when there are teams that normally people disagree.
Yeah, for sure.
But it was strange that we did not disagree. I don't know.
Yeah, we did not disagree a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we did disagree for some point, but it was not a lot.
But like, I find the points of disagreement tend to be really interesting, because it doesn't mean that like it's a problem, but it does represent specific like decision points, right? Where one, you could go this way or you could go that way, and smart people who are both invested can have different opinions, both being valid.
I don't think we reached that level.
No,
of, like,
I think it was more.
making.
Yeah, I think so. There is something that is very particular about this moment, because we feel that I felt that there was like a retraction or some sort of there wasn't so much Arab shows as they used to be. And so I wasn't meeting enough of my peers or younger or older artists, though in the normal setups where I'm participating as an artist in exhibitions that they are participating in too, where the majority of us are Arabs. And so by also like proposing to have an Arab show was in itself a need that I felt that was there for us to think about, and we could see the effect of that when the artists arrived and they were like exchanging. Some of them knew each other but never met each other, and I think that even inspired Ahmed Mater at the time. And he said, "What if Riyadh becomes like this cultural hub, like the way Cairo was or the way Baghdad was at a certain point?" And that was a dimension that we haven't thought about at the time when we were working. It's just, it came from a need where we felt that we've shared, we've, as I said, like we've emerged of this type of conversation, but we have not framed it as a question that is addressed to as many as possible from the artists we like to talk to. And we wish we could have included more artists, because there are so many other artists that would have really amazingly contributed to the idea, or other works. But we also think that this is only like a step, or just like one element or one life of this many lives for this project. So the point of disagreement, I think, was there more if we've considered this type of, like one type of presentation was worth, not worth, but like it fits within this collection, or can be for a later discussion, or if that had outstood in its time, in a particular way that could, or should we just like take something else into consideration? So I think these were the points, and I think it was also very rich because it came from how we differently navigated our artistic careers as well as curatorial and administrative ones. Yeah. So I think it wasn't, like the point of difference is there, but not as in a clashing point as much as just like make like the putting two layers of experiences on top of each other and see what seeps through these lines.
Yeah, just I think that's the only disagreement or like challenging point. But for me personally, I think maybe I didn't speak about it, but I think because you are an artist yourself, and you always, when you play the role of an artist, but at the same time a curator, add to them that my role actually as an admin person, as a director of DAF. And so I play different roles. So you look at, as an artist, sometimes you have your own opinion about things that are also judgmental opinion for some times. And as a curator, you should not do that. Because you have like a bigger overview, you have objectives, you have curatorial, and you need to tell the story with the artworks you exhibit. So, and that's the part I think we complemented each other's a lot in like different, curatorially speaking. But the part of the admin and know what's happening in the kitchen, I should always keep being conscious that I should not think as a director of DAF as much as I am the curator of the exhibition with Ala. So not to have any influence as a director on my decision making as a curator. So
Haytham disagreed with himself.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. Which happens all the time. That happens all the time. I'm curious about sort of like the timeline of the exhibition, and if there's like a point at which you think we can't go before that date. Like this is the starting point of this like corpus of art. Like anything before then, like who falls outside the boundary? What Arab artists or pieces are you like, this makhassa, it doesn't work. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
If I may just start
of course,
this.
please.
Yeah, but because we didn't look at it that way. It's not, I mean, the time frame, it's of course related to the technology. And when the work was, contextually speaking, as an art piece. I will give an example of moving images. Sure. So time-based media, we call it nowadays, because the medium could change, but it's time-based media. So beginning of experimentation of film as a medium. So when people have the fictional film or the traditional way of defining what is film, some people, they didn't do actually that. They did experiment with the medium. And the way how they showed the film, also it was not shown in a traditional way, as in theater house, like a cinema. So, for example, I think one of the artists that we bring here is the Egyptian filmmaker, Mohammed Bayoumi, 1923. The thing is that it's not just only because he did, of course, it's very early in time, and theoretically speaking, he was just playing with the medium, experimenting with the medium as with film. And he created a film, a funny film, silent movie, and it's called Balsoum Yabhas an Wazifa. And that was also the way how he showed it, trying to actually take it to the streets and make people publicly see the film, not as in theater houses. Also, we have Ihab Shakir, first experimental animation in the 50s and 60s. So, same way again, the film, the animation, as a medium of fine art. So he was just not commercially speaking, not also just like he's playing with the medium. We have also Ali and Hussam Muhib, and they're also doing mix between animation and between film, sometimes for commercial work, sometimes for advertisements, but it wasn't recognized or acknowledged as an art piece. So we tried to find out those elements that was not defined because there was no video art or time-based media at that time as an art form. And we tried to bring all these works and we create a narrative to tell people like, yes, there is actually a lot of artworks. At that time, artists, when they actually experimented with them and tried to show and share the work, it wasn't at that time defined as new media art. And of course, historians from elsewhere, they never saw the work and they never wrote about it, and it's completely ignored.
Yeah.
I want to say that I think it's a nice question when you ask what is the before and like what is the moment of before, right? Like what is the moment from which we consider that that's the moment that we start to historicize. And I think it's dependent also on the technology that was being used.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about light or electricity, then it must be around the time when electricity came out. So like if we look at works that utilize electricity in the 80s, it's totally different, of course, moment of being amazed by the work. As we know, like Nadia Seqali, for instance, created her light works in the early 70s. And so on. So it was more about I think it's the time frames or the 0 point was related to the media that was used. But maybe we should
but also
mention
in the Arab world.
Yeah,
So not
particularly.
the invention of the media or the technology internationally, when it was available in the Arab
True.
world, an art historian.
صح. That's very true. But for instance, like someone like Nadia Seqali, who utilized light in her art, she was often in Paris, and that was also like if she has done her work around 1970, 72, that was also the time when these like major media art, new media art exhibitions happening in London. And so we assumed that she must have seen something, or it must have been like a ripple where, she picked up a new media and based on that she produced the work. And the other thing I wanted to mention is basically we show works by Affat Nagi and Abdelhadi Al-Ghazar, and they are about how they visited the site of the construction site of the High Dam in the 60s, early 60s, and were faced by this colossal site utilizing lots of machines operated by Egyptians, fellow Egyptians, so they belonged to the project of that is the machine in conversation with the human. And so what type of work they produce based on that, whether depicting the scaffolds or talking about the machine, but also the works of Arif al-Rayis and how he depicted the machine as a war machine, eating or being like crushed with the people themselves as well in the paintings he produced. Was another like fascinating depiction or a reflection on the new media to come, right? On this relationship to technology at the time. He produced it in painting, just like Ghazar and Affat Nagi. So it was for us it was very, very, so I feel like that's like the prehistory kind of moment in our exhibition, where artists have kind of detected that there is a conversation between two entities, human and machine, and what comes next is basically the art that comes next in the work of the other artists
Yeah.
that we show.
If you were to reorganize the exhibition based on the sort of the geography or the geographic perspective of the artists, do you think there would also be a bunch of different clusters that are like subject-based or theme-based or technology-based that would also have made sense if you didn't want to do it in terms of like glitch and automation and ripple and stuff like that?
I mean, of course, there is different ways of have an interpretation of the work, for sure. But I mean, the history of new media art is the history of the Arab world. Our history of, as I mentioned, socio-political, culture, and economical history of the Arab world. It just
Talk a little bit about that, because like break that down.
Break that down. It's the themes. It's like artists. They are a mirror of the societies. So when an artist expresses creatively their ideas in the medium they choose, of the available medium they choose, whether they are physically in the country or, as Ala mentioned, even in another country, still they are very concerned about the subject matter of the time. So political themes like the high dam and the machines and the Nubia villages that being removed from before the dam to in front of the dam. So it's a subject matter of that time, and the artists, they expressed this in their paintings, and the state actually didn't recognize that was somehow against, and that's my interpretation about the painting themselves. But also when you look at people taking about political subjects, like most of the work, for example, of Palestinians and participating in the exhibition, have a political aspect of the invasion of the Israeli to the Palestinian land. So you'll find ways of expressing their thoughts and ideas, and even being activists against the colonization through the artworks. So it's the history of the Arab world, it's the history of the region, but expressed in artwork. So there is ways of actually navigating through, not necessarily also our ways of connecting them.
Yeah. I have a question. I want to read the title exactly. So how did you define Arab world? I'm curious, because this is a question I obviously get asked almost every single day, because afikra is focused on the history and culture of the Arab world. So I'm going to ask you the question that I hate being asked, which is, how did you guys define Arab world? Was that something that you thought about a lot, or did it just, the most sort of basic rudimentary? Was it something that you were trying to sort of push and interrogate as well?
I feel our knowledge of the Arab world or belonging to the Arab world is more like spontaneous and how to say, it's built in within us. So it doesn't, like, we don't look too much into defining the geography as much as we define the belonging, perhaps. Like, where do you feel that you belong to? And so, for instance, there are Arab artists who have U.S. citizenship, but they refer to themselves with the name of, as citizens, or like they refer to themselves as Palestinian or Lebanese or Egyptian, even when they're carrying other passports. And so, typically we're covering like geographically the area that is from here to here, known as the Arab world, but also the Arab artists who are in diaspora or who have moved in between locations. I think it's more about, like how artists might have identified themselves being Arab.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very complicated question. I've been through this before several times with different research projects that I've been questioned when I keep saying the word Arab world. And we had different discussions about our definition, because we're not really looking for using the word identity of being like Arab identity. However, most of the people, they've been sharing the same language to a certain extent. So it's have the notion of identity, which belongs to the language, but also shared cultures, shared habits, shared, let's say, also similarities, things that connect them. But as you know, the Arab world is very diverse. Again, the Arab world, theoretically, by the 22 countries of the Arab League, they are very diverse, and there are multiple layers of identities, not just only Arab identity. Maybe the Arab identity is just 700 years. But still, you can find even some of the projects that beyond the Arab notion. It's more of even the layers of history, especially for a project that talks about the artifacts of Egypt, like Noor al-Badri, which is an Iraqi artist, or Sadiq al-Faraji, which is also Iraqi, talks about the artifacts of Iraq. So there is much more than Arab, much older than Arab identity or notion of identity, and then that's actually here.
Okay. I'm going to ask you some like really basic listically questions. Please forgive me, okay? But we're going to do this anyway. What is one of the pieces that you think people most misunderstand when they come through?
Okay, I will answer this after the second question.
Okay, I'll tell you a bunch of them. One of them is the other one that you think is totally is like your favorite, whether it's other people's favorites or not, but it sort of lives rent free in your brain. Like you always think about this. You always think about this work constantly.
Okay, and the next question. I'll come back to all of them. It's just we need a bit.
You're skipping. You're swiping through the question.
I mean, if you have an
we
answer.
prepare the answer.
Yeah, let's do these
I want
two.
the answer.
Yeah.
It's really difficult because the expression from a curatorial point of view is like also they're all our babies.
For sure.
You really have to love them equally, even if it's not really the reality. But we have to love them equally. But things like artworks are that I don't get bored of looking at. For example, Ahmad Martel's work with the videos from the workers of the. I keep looking at the videos every time that I'm looking at them for the first time. Always have the same fascination and amazed by the energy of the workers on site, and then of course knowing about Ahmad Nawar, his work, and also having the whole research and books in his book, The Desert of Iran. It makes me keep thinking and have all the fish eye of like the lives of the workers at that particular site and all the historical layers that you can see of the expansion of Al Haram in Mecca, and all the stories. It's a human piece. So this is a piece that I really like, and I keep looking at all the time.
And we put that piece close to Al Ghazar and Afat Nagi because again, this human next to the colossal construction site. So, for instance, that's a link that we think is crucial. For instance, I like very much Unusual Summer by Kamal Jafari. I always thought that it can push the exhibition or push the curatorial statement a little bit into a space that is super interesting because it's made out of CCTV footage that his father installed a CCTV camera to see who someone was either damaging or sabotaging something in his sister's car or garden or something. And then when the father passed away, Kamal went to these materials and he looked at them and he found amazing things about the neighbors treating his family house. No, I mean, I like a lot all the works that are in the show, but if you are asking me to tell a story from some of the works, I can tell you this story.
Yeah, I want to talk about the misunderstanding one too, because it's a show that, I mean, if real quick, who's actually seen the show yet? Raise your hand. Okay. All right, we'll get some questions from you guys afterwards. But I'm curious if there are any pieces, and maybe the answer is no, but I would be surprised if the answer is no. Are there any pieces that you feel like people walk away from them without fully getting what the artist is trying to get to?
I mean, the word misunderstood, I a little bit disagree with the word misunderstood. I mean, because you have different variation of interpretation of the work, and sometimes the work is very like open-ended. If you don't read the statement, you might actually have your own interpretation. You walk away without actually perceiving what the artist wants to share with you. But so most of the pieces can have multiple interpretations. So I will not say misunderstood. But if I want to give you more like a cheesy answer of the of the question, sometimes some of the artworks they are abstract scenes for very particular elements in a very particular time, and sometimes it's not that easy to understand why the artists are actually using that particular scene in this film if you're looking at like shot by shot.
Yeah.
So, for example, you have, I was thinking of like artworks that might have misunderstood concept of like Sylvie and Sharif Dafawi artworks. They are both Egyptian Swiss artists from the early like pioneer video artists, especially in Switzerland. And they worked in Egypt in the 90s. And we did exhibit three artworks or three videos, and they are from different eras, from 70s, 80s, and 90s. And the themes of the artworks are mostly about actually the Arab world, but that time was like Oriental themes. And some of the elements or the shots of the videos, they're actually in Cairo, in Damascus, and other Arab countries, and they are like video collages. And sometimes you don't really understand why they put this sequence scenes beside each other. Sometimes it's like a figure dancing and then like a bodybuilder, but then there is a scene in a mosque in the streets of Cairo. And then, of course, if you read the description, you will make a little bit of sense why they use that particular sequence of scenes. But if you just see them, it might feel misunderstood.
Do you have one too?
In fact, no. I do agree that there's nothing called, like nothing is like misunderstanding. Okay, maybe they are not getting the idea of the artist, but maybe but not necessarily misinterpreting it. So I would maybe talk about the work of Raed Ibrahim, which is this post that is automatically moving in the exhibition, like rotating around spinning around itself, or rotating around this post. And it does not necessarily tell you what it is pointing towards, but in the intention of the artist, there's very particular locations that these like arrows are going towards. And so I'm sure that the visitors do not know the intention of the artist, and some might know because of their connection to the artist. Otherwise, people are just like carrying different meanings of what they see in that work, which is basically passing by it and seeing it rotating at this particular moment towards something or someone. So it is in itself inherently trying to just keep confusing the meaning by changing the orientation of the arrows. So I would interpret it this way, for instance.
Can I just add something which is very interesting, but counterproductive at the same time in terms of like new media art. So you have the advantage of technology, which makes people curious about the technology, what's happening here. Sometimes it's very like entertaining, so they can get a certain level of interactivity with it and then play with it, and then like an ease in terms of like interacting with the artwork, and I'm trying to understand it. But then you have at the same time a comment, for example, from one of my colleagues after seeing the exhibition, and then he said to me like, they really look interesting, but it's too sophisticated to me. So he spent time in front of the artworks. Yes, it's a video or an animation or sometimes a VR piece, but he came out and didn't really understand what the intention of the artist.
Yeah.
So it have this contrast.
I wonder, like, so the idea of putting together a show like this that tells the sort of the story of the region through this genre of like new media art. I wonder if the story is different if it was told through sort of music, or if it was told through painting exclusively. Like, is the story of the Arab world slightly different because you've only chosen this very broad, obviously, a very broad category of art?
No, because if we live the same political situations and of course economical and the change in the society that is also inflicted by war or by economic crisis or even economic booms, and then it is the same story if you're trying to tell a political story, for instance, or a social story. But if you're trying to if you want to tell the story of how painters lost more of exhibition opportunities post 9/11, then you are telling a contradicting story to stories of installation and video artists getting more exposure to their work from that moment onwards, because it was easier and almost that's sometimes the only way to manage to make work cross borders. And so here it's a different type of narrative. It's basically depending on who is the protagonist that is leading the story telling.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was going to actually answer the same way, but just a different wording. Because art is it's not always, the story, every story have two or more different version of the story. So a lot of the time in the Arab world, especially in the modern history of the Arab world, there is a state-led artworks and artists being criticized during time. So some mediums with certain exposure and more accessible to mass audience, they will actually be used from the state to expose. Yeah. So music is one of them. And paintings, not that much. How many audience you will have for an exhibition in general until today? How many? But one song. Mm-hmm. So some of the genre could have more power than other genre. So if we change that, of course, it will change completely the narrative.
Very cool. I want to open up to some questions in the audience. I don't know if we have another mic. I think we do. Gentleman in the red hat, or in the hat with the red brim. So if we have a question, you can raise your hand. I'll ask one last question while you think. Who was the hardest get in terms of piece or artist that you were just like, amazing, we got this one. We really didn't think it was going to come through.
Piece or an artist?
Let's do both.
Okay, it's not because it was, we have found a film by Ahmed Bouanani, who's a Moroccan filmmaker, experimental, he's like interdisciplinary artist and filmmaker. And we found this film by Ahmed Bouanani on teaching logo coding, coding and programming to young people or children in Morocco in the 80s. So we located a copy of this film and sent it for digitization and all of that, and bring a copy for the exhibition here, and then send that copy to Paris to become part of the estate of Ahmed Bouanani. So it wasn't hard to get, we figured it out. All of that is just this question of ownership was just complicating, and also by none of us being there and owning this. So basically there are all these entities imagined that they were there, trying to get a copy of the film digitized for us to use, but also eventually what do we do? And then the residue is basically that the film itself becomes part of an asset or this, estate, which was a nice thing.
We have several artworks. Actually, they have nice story, the way how we bring them. And I think the stories behind getting the artworks and exhibiting them here in this context of this exhibition, it's not really about to compare artists and artworks as much as the story behind not collecting, but bringing this artwork to the exhibition here. So we have, if I add to Ahmed Bouanani's story, we have Lucien Samaha. He's a Lebanese American artist, and he's the first artist that actually invented digital photography. The first digital image, it's by him. He was working in New York in Kodak Labs. And
he didn't invent, he utilized. He's the first person to ever click the first digital image.
Really?
And we have the digital machine here.
Yeah, you get the film machine, the large hard drive that would actually transfer for only one image. So we have everything. So that's like a nice
Usually
finding.
Lebanese people claim to be the first without being the first. I'm glad that in this case...
He's actually the first. He claimed that
he is. There's even a letter that he has written to someone else saying, you might be the first. And the guy says, well, I don't want, you can be the first. And so he is officially the first person.
Wow.
And that's a very nice story because all the images that he has taken since that very first image, which we have the camera and we have the first image, he was calling the first digital image of a cat, first digital image of a walk, of a tree, so like he was very, very conscious of that. This is a birth moment of digital images, and so the very first image of a cat. I find that very amusing as much as
Like .jpeg. What was it? What was the
The
file
extension
name?
of the file?
Yeah.
I'm
they
not
haven't
sure.
asked
I'm
that
not
question.
sure. We didn't ask that question.
Yeah.
Well, I asked that question, but he told us amazing stories. Some stuff we couldn't show. For instance, when he's an avid photographer, he's like an avid collector. He has like more than 1 million assets of things in his New York apartment. And he was telling us that when he was going to, in fact, Walid Rad was telling us when Lucien Samaha was in parties, he would take photos of people and then he wants to send them their photos. And so there's like, in a party, how do you take the email of someone to send them the photo? So he filmed people spelling out their emails to him on video so that later he types them in and sends the photos. So this was like another amusing story on how first of all that people are using emails, and then how do you write down an email in
He
a setup?
saves it first video of email address.
Yeah, I don't know how he calls it, but yeah, something like that.
Okay.
But there's another piece I would like also to mention. There is a project that we commissioned, Shadi Nishuati. It's a project of an archival project of a workshop that's been conducted for 16 years in Cairo in the Faculty of Art Education in Helwan University. So just briefly, the story that Shadi is an artist himself and a teacher. So he was granted Fulbright in the US, in the Chicago Art Institute. It was his first time to be exposed to video art and media art. And so he got an access to the library of the school, and they granted him that he can actually copy all the material inside, that he can use it as a teaching material in Cairo when he's back. So when he went back to Cairo in 1995, he was trying to teach all what he learned in that particular scholarship. Of course, his colleagues and his senior faculty, they refused the idea. What is video art? What is new media? It's all what we teach is what we teach. And Shadi, because he's really nagging, I'm sorry, Shadi, if you see this one day, nagging a lot.
Yeah.
He is like, okay, we have the summer, take the summer, and we give you this hanger. You can do whatever you want to do, but out of the curriculum. So Shadi created these workshops to teach media art and all sound art, stop motion animation, video art, even different mediums, and with the students that are interested of experimental work than the traditional format. And for 16 years, and he never got the chance, and he was very good in documentation in terms of photography, videos, notes, sketches, and everything. But he never got the chance to share this result of work. And because Shadi is a friend and a colleague, I know that they have the material. So we commissioned him to create an artwork based on this archival material of 16 years of work in Cairo in the art education faculty in a time when people rejected new media art as part of the academic curriculum. And one of the pieces, also the graduate of the students, I was personally very happy to show this piece here in Maknana, was the artwork of Ahmed Basyouni. It's called 30 Days Running in Place, which was an artist who was born in 1978 and passed away or killed in 2011 in the Egyptian Revolution in Cairo. And that was actually the last project he does. We have a different socio-political meaning, and he passed away afterwards. And then the work was actually the official participation of the Egyptian Pavilion in Venice Biennale in 2011, same year when he died. So I was really very glad, I think together, glad to have this work as part of the exhibition.
Amazing. All right, let's open up if there are any questions, you can raise your hand. If you can just say your name, that would be great.
Hi, my name is Mizuho. Thank you so much for the beautiful discussions. It was really amazing to hear all these stories. I have one question about the gender balance. And I was pleasantly surprised to see a lot of females included in this exhibition. When you guys are creating this exhibition, did you intentionally include more female artists, or did it just happen to be like this? And then also, what kind of criteria did you use in terms of bringing artists in terms of the gender?
I think that we do not necessarily have to always think in a way that it's a matter of calculation. I think the artists that we have in the exhibition, they are the female artists or the male artists, or the artists that we have in the exhibition. They are the projects are very special, and the projects spoke to us. I mean, they spoke to us conceptually. They spoke to us in terms of the media and in terms of the execution of the work, and the balance happens naturally.
Yeah, again, that's a very good answer, but we were just very conscious about our decisions for sure. Nothing we chose because of any other reason than that actually enable us to tell our story.
Thank you.
Can I add a question to that before we move on to that? Can you just give us the just general stats? How many artists are there? How many pieces are there in Maknana?
50 artists.
51 artists.
70.
And 73 pieces.
Okay. From across the Arab world.
Yes, our definition of Arab world.
Yes, your definition of the Arab world. Great. We have another question right here.
My name is Sabi. Thank you for this wonderful discussion. My question is actually at a very general level, because it's something I keep thinking about. Any exhibition that focuses on a genre and where new media art is presented as a genre of, because everyone who uses the term always also puts it in inverted commas, because one knows that what is new about new media art and all of those things, right? And when does new start? But I think when it comes to any change in media, it's also a change in the media landscape, and which is also therefore a change in the public sphere. So any discussion on new media art also beckons the question of what kind of new publics form with the change in media. And these new publics, one can find correlations, for instance, with the emergence of theater, of cinema, and new public sphere forms around entertainment and leisure. When the onset of television comes, there's a domestication of leisure and entertainment and these kinds of things. Now with streaming and then mobile phone streaming, there's an atomization, and yet everyone's on the same platform. So how does an exhibition of new media art address that?
Yeah, very nice question. I think that, first of all, many of these works that are shown in the exhibition, they show the collaborators, the unintended collaborators, basically, who fed the content or who passed on the material to the artist. So basically, you see that there are people inside this world, and the artist has built his work or her work from the contribution or from the construction or the world building of the others. And so the public is basically involved, is basically implicated and participating already from before the work has become a work. And we find this fascinating as well. But then there is a particular work that reflects the point that you've mentioned about TV and cinema, the work also of Ahmed Mater, which did not exist before the exhibition. In fact, when we were visiting his studio, he was telling us as friends about his upcoming book, which is basically from the year he was born, 1979. He calls it like an artist odyssey. He is tracing what type of media communicated to him as a Saudi young man growing up in the region, from political, commercial, economic, social, technological, religious, expressions or forces, and which media did each these eras were utilizing. So, are they utilizing magazines and print, and then the decade later utilizing cassettes, video and sound cassettes, and then later utilizing computers and internet forums, and and then later. And so he's like following all these like points while he's telling his own story. And in the book, it shows, he's taking these screen captures, sometimes photographing the cassette itself, sometimes taking a page from a book or the cover of a book. But in the exhibition, he brings these drawers in which he kept his collection of these objects, and displays them also as per a chronology, the same chronology that related to his own biography. It was fascinating to see how the work of the life story of one artist as per in relationship to media or new media could also become my own story. And maybe someone else would do it differently.
Just want to add, Mikey, just because again you mentioned where the way and how it was exhibited and the public sphere, it's changed a lot. So taking the artwork with the very particular technology used at that time, and then you move it from public sphere, from public space, and then take it inside a gallery or a museum, and then it almost completely changed the perception. So it's like really like a ready-made object. When it's taken from a context of a design, putting it in an exhibition, then it's understood as an art piece. Similarly with some of the pieses, like an archival work of Ahmed Martyr, it's inside the gallery. It's different than, still it doesn't erase the other aspect or the other actual layers. It adds to it when you are exhibiting it, especially when there is a dialogue happening between the artworks inside, the space, or even the scenography work. Then it's a new interpretation to a new public, but still you don't really forget what actually the content, which is again a multiple layers of inputs. And he said the definition of new media changed with time, and we try to have a lineage of mediums, again very linked to the Arab world, and then connect them together, create this dialogue between the artworks and different mediums and different stories for a new actually type of audience, which mostly here, especially in Saudi, in Riyadh, very young in terms of age, but also a lot of them, they're not really exposed to that type of work. So I think it's a nice blend of all this together.
Amazing. Let's take one more question and then we'll wrap up. I see a question up there. If you can say your name.
My name is Ilham Dosari. So I saw the show once, and it really deserves multiple, or at least I'm sure I'm going to go there more times. So what new media looks like, the approach, for me at least, it's covering how artists have approached new media, whether it's from playfulness all the way to maybe like an existential bypass, or like identity, reform, diaspora, autonomy versus censorship. But what I want to know is from the curators is, after you've worked on the research and the curation, what thoughts or what important insight that wasn't in the initial research came through? Or for instance, you wanted to do maybe, or you just like entertain the idea of having a second or third iteration based on it?
I think yes, we do think that we need more iterations because, for instance, we have a work by Munna Hatoum, and it's really a great work, and it's a table with a map of the world, and it's all made of holes, and it's illuminated in this weird green fiber color. neon color. And for instance, while her work, so much I want to say, which is basically her image being broadcasted from Canada to back to UK or something, with the lags and all of that is basically essential. I feel it essential to think about what, for instance, how an artist like Minna Hatoum coming back to the region with the workshops or the talks that she was producing inspired other generations of artists and so on. So there are other cycles within the history that we've figured out that they weren't necessarily illustrated in a particular way in the exhibition, because that wasn't the intention, because we did not want to produce an exhibition necessarily on how certain artists inspired other artists. But I think to see that that type of knowledge, and I think that's the expanded also public space that the exhibition allows us, basically by making that knowledge of these works or these conversations more available, more out there for people to know about them and continue from there, whether us or others, I think in itself is a thing that kind of opened my eyes more. I mean, I was looking forward to the moment when we opened the show, because that's the moment when all these new media artists are going to come to us to show us that they were also there and we have not worked with them. Or maybe we can work with them next time. And so it is this, it's like waving to the other artists that this is an intention and an interest and a growing project. So I think that's what I've seen, or what I was waiting to see in the moment we open the show, rather than, or build up towards opening. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, just I think there's not really a lot to add. It's more as it's an open-ended research. It's actually just starting, and that's what was, again, as you know, any research have always a time frame. So within our time frame, within our abilities, that's what we...
Size of the space.
Yeah, that's what we said in this particular time, in this particular space. But already from the moment when we opened the exhibition, there is much more already of information and data is coming in. And hopefully with another editions of that exhibition somewhere else, we could actually share more with the public audience. But also maybe in another format, which we have a symposium. There is another book actually coming out related to the same subject with a different opinion from different authors. And the symposium will be in sometime in July. And it's just a starting point, and it's an ongoing finding and research, and hopefully we can share more with the public.
Cool. Haytham, Ala, thanks so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.